Welcome back to show number 6 of Talkin Bama with Big C. I'm your host, Colin Big C McGuire. We're going to do a recap of last weekend's game with Ole Miss and also a preview of this upcoming game with Arkansas. We'll recap the Ole Miss game and what happens. Alabama traveled to Oxford, Mississippi. The turnovers, penalties resulted in Alabama losing the ball game. And you have 8 penalties for 52 yards, a fumble and an interception, and also missing 2 field goals that will come back to bite you. And also, one of the field goals that Alabama missed was at the beginning of the second half. Alabama had the ball for 7 minutes, had controlled the game, and missed a field goal. They would have gone up 17-3, but with them turning the ball over on downs, Ole Miss drove the ball and scored to make it 14-10. And needless to say, it gave the homestanding team momentum. And then they went ahead, tied it up 17-17, and Alabama fumbled the ensuing kickoff, and they recovered it, drove downfield, scored, got the extra point block. Then Alabama had a chance of winning at the end of the game, but threw an interception into the end zone with less than a minute to go. So Alabama now is 4-1. They were number 1 in the coaches poll, number 3 in the AP poll, and dropped to number 7 in both polls, and travels to Fayetteville, Arkansas this coming Saturday to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. We'll talk about the history of the Alabama-Arkansas series, and the first 2 times Alabama played Arkansas, Arkansas was a member of the Southwest Conference. First time Alabama ever played them was on January 1st, 1962. Alabama was already crowned national champions because back then the polls ended at the end of the regular season, and like the bowl game was like a exhibition game. It wasn't an exhibition game, it counted, but from a pride standpoint, but it did not affect the teams in the rankings. But Alabama ended up beating them 10-3. Halfback Mike Frocky was the most valuable player, and quarterback Pat Trammell made a long run in that game. But anyway, ended up winning 10-3. And then the next time, and that was Coach Bryant's first national championship at Alabama, who, by the way, was a native of Fordyce, Arkansas. But anyway, 18 years later, on January 1st, 1980, in the Superdome in New Orleans, Alabama played them again. And both times, Arkansas was co-champions of the Southwest Conference those seasons. But anyway, Alabama ended up winning 24-9, and that was Coach Bryant's last national championship team. He won 6 in the first one, and the last one he beat Arkansas to win the national championship. The last best game that Alabama and Arkansas played in was on September 25th, 2010. Arkansas took a 20-7 halftime lead, and Ryan Mallett was the quarterback, who's a backup quarterback for the New England Patriots now, was throwing the ball all over the park, but Alabama's defense settled down. The running game settled down, and they came back to win 24-20. And so then that was the last best game. Since then, the series of those games since then, they've been blowouts. The last 2 have been 52-0, 52-0 shutouts. But anyway, this year's game will be a lot better than the last 2 because they're traveling to Arkansas, and as you know, it is hard to win on the road in the SEC. Our trivia question for today is, name 4 former Alabama football players who were assistant coaches at Arkansas. And also, I recently interviewed Coach Danny Ford, who was a former player at Alabama and head coach at Arkansas. And you'll be able to hear that interview after these messages. Hey, Coach, how you doing this morning?
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Doing good. And I want to mention, as everybody knows, he played at Alabama from 1967 to 69, and then you were a graduate assistant, and then you was a full-time assistant at Alabama, and then you went, you followed Jimmy Sharp up to Virginia Tech, and then to Clemson with Charlie Pale, then took over at Clemson, and then went to Arkansas. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of do a chronological deal on your coaching your days at Alabama and part of your coaching career. But let me ask you a quick question now. I thought this, and I finally was able to look this up last night. You played tight end your first year at Alabama in '67, and you were the second leading receiver. Excuse me, Dennis Holman was the leading receiver, and
Right.
you caught 10 passes for 22 yards for a 12.2 point average. And then the spring you were switched to tackle. How big of an adjustment was that, or what was the reason behind they moved you from tight end to tackle that year?
Well, it was quite. I came to school as a wide receiver type player, and I couldn't run fast enough. And Alabama had a lot of them then, and that was good and could run. And so I ended up at tight end, and I had 10 receptions, and Holman had, I think, 67, and everybody else had 9. So that's my claim to fame, that beating everybody by one catch. And well, anyway, later on, there was 1 year there at Alabama. Decided to go out and recruit all over the country and try to get the. I think I played Nebraska in about '66. Somebody thought Coach Bright going out and all these big linemen at other states. And used to just stay in the southeast a little bit. He went all over the country and brought in a bunch of guys. And come Christmas time, about 5 of them quit and didn't come back. We ran short of personnel because of recruiting, and most of them were on offensive players. So I was born in Albert Samples, who was a great offensive guard, and had to go play linebacker some. And he was, people had to play everywhere and move people around. That's really why we went 65 there for 1 year.
I believe you became a full-time coach in '73, and your timing on that was really good because y'all won the UPI National Championship that year.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, I've asked several other coaches that's done the same thing as you, win a national championship. How much did that help you to win the national champion, or the pattern that you learned to do that help you later on when y'all won the national championship at Clemson in '81?
Oh yeah. You try to. All you know is what you've been involved in and what you can learn on the way. But you're gonna stay with how you've been raised, and that was kind of how we did things. Not pattern matching, but everything that we try to teach our players. He taught us, and the things that he said we tried to say, not his way, but in a different way. Like you always said, we win and I lose, and you take credit for defeats, and you give your players and your staff still credit for winning, and all that kind of thing that he was so keen on. But that's all you know when you start to coach. And when I left and went to Virginia Tech with Coach Sharp, the first year I had a chance to go with Pat Dye. And, he didn't ask him, but Coach Bailey came down and said, Coach Wright don't want you to go. And I said, okay, and didn't have any choice in the matter when he said that. And then the next year, he asked me what I thought, and I said, I thought I ought to go. And he said, you didn't need to go. And I think he just had a great sense of time when to cut them loose and when to keep them and when to do all that kind of thing.
Now, you had a lot of success at Clemson, and then in 1989, you left coaching until 1992, and you were helping Joe Tynes. I know that what happened at Arkansas, they fired Crow after the first game, and when did you come on board to help him, and then you ended up being named the head coach next year? When did you come on board to help Coach Tynes in 92 that year when after Crow got
I think they played. They opened up with a sizzle, and then they played. It was the second or third game. I think they played Mississippi State or somebody, and then played Ole Miss before that. I can't remember who they played, but it was in the second or third week, I think, and they got about 3 punts blocked that day. And then it was on a Sunday, and I was coming back from church, and when I got home, Joe had called, and so I called him back, and then talked to Coach Sproul, and then I had to go to Columbia and talk to a lawyer because I was still under contract with Clemson at that time, and so I had to get all that cleared up, and then they said, well, when can you be here? And I said, well, could be 2 or 3 days. And they said, no, we're gonna come get you. They was at the airport in Greenville 8 o'clock in the morning. So, they were there, and got on the plane, flew up there, and it was as you could imagine, it was a mess. But
Yeah.
Joe was a fine man and a fine football coach. And I would have given anything in the world if I could have helped achieve him to get that job, because I really think he was really a head coaching material and really had a way with young people. And didn't work out, and anyway, I got the job, and I didn't go there to get the job. The only reason I got there to get the job was, to go to Arkansas was because I could get back into coaching and try to get another job.
Yeah. Now, Arkansas has a passionate fan base like Alabama does, but how does their fan base compare with the Alabama fan base, or is there any way you can compare the two?
Well, half the people in Arkansas, a little over half of them, got hunting privilege or hunting license. And if you're not winning, they're not gonna come to the football game. They're gonna go hunt. So anyway, if you don't win, they're not gonna sit in the stands like the Alabama people in Ray stands and calls the coaching games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're just not gonna come if you're not winning. I think they're having a tough time this year selling tickets. What I've been told by the spirit. And it's only because of the last year they weren't very successful. But when they came into the SEC, which South Carolina came in the same year, neither South Carolina nor Arkansas were ready to participate in the SEC. They didn't have the facilities, they didn't have the players, they didn't have they had no idea about the recruiting, they had no idea about what all you had to do to belong in the SEC, and they were way behind. So it took both of them several years. I think it took Arkansas probably 8 or 9 years. It took South Carolina about the same amount of time.
All right, the third year you was at Arkansas, y'all went 8-5. You struggled, but it seemed like y'all righted the ship. And needless to say, I gotta believe that first win ever against Alabama in program history in Tuscaloosa, the 20-19 win, must have set y'all in the right direction that season.
Yeah, well, I think we beat Alabama twice in a 5-year period. And the first year that we played them, they totally embarrassed us. And both times we won. One was on a questionable call on a receiver. J.J. Meadows catching the ball in the zone, which I think he called, but Alabama people don't think he did. And another one we had accidentally had 12 men on the field going in at the end of the game, and that was a stupid mistake by us. So the officials couldn't catch it, and we scored and won the football game on that. So two questionable type situations, but Alabama was so far ahead, we would put any kind of situation to that point. That did help us a little bit. That helped our players. Our players, we had to start recruiting and go and get the people that we were once familiar with all over the country, Texas, Oklahoma, and places out there for being and recruiting in, Louisiana and all that. But we did, and they grew up, and they got whipped a bunch before that. But by the time they were seniors, they ended up having a chance going unbeaten in the SEC. And I wasn't there, and Coach Nutt was there then. But when Sterner ran the clock out against Tennessee and fumbled, they would have won that football game. They would have been 11-0. So they paid the price for getting beaten, and we did have one pretty decent year there when we won the West.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you. going to do right now is we're going to talk about the matchups between Alabama and Arkansas, and what we're going to do is use the Coach Gene Stallings method, which has been very successful for us this season. But right now, I'll go ahead and mention this to you. Alabama's rushing offense, with them running the ball, they're ranked number 23 in the country. Arkansas's rushing defense, stopping the run, is number 51. Alabama's rushing defense is number 3 versus Arkansas's rushing offense, number 7. And Alabama's turnover margin is 106 versus Arkansas's turnover margin of 42. And my prediction is that Alabama will have a struggle for a while, but come running away from them and ended up winning 35-17 on a big road win, which they need right now to rebound from the loss to Ole Miss last weekend. The trivia question, the answer to the trivia question. First, let me mention the question, then we'll mention the answer. The question is, name 4 former Alabama football players who were assistant coaches at the University of Arkansas. The answer is Richard Williamson, Hootie Ingram, Steve Sprayberry, and John Mitchell. All 3 of the 4 of those men played for Coach Bryant. Hootie Ingram played in the early 50s, but they all contributed to the Razorback cause as coaches at Arkansas. Our time's about up for this week's show, but I want to thank the following people. First, I want to thank Coach Danny Ford, our guest. I also want to thank Coach Ronnie West, who helped me get in touch with Coach Ford. Also, the production staff of this show, James Crenshaw, producer deluxe, Robert Williamson, the producer. And I want to thank all you that watch this show, and please tell your friends about this show. Like us on Facebook, but I also want to let you know, Monday through Friday from 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time, yours truly has a show called Talking Sports with Big C at www.JockJive.com. And also let your friends know that you can get this show at the same site, www.JockJive.com. And as always we do when we sign off, roll, Tide, roll!